Okay, so today I am going to do the over 30s tag. So as most of you are no doubt aware, March was my birthday month and I am most definitely over 30. I am now in fact over 40. So this seemed like an appropriate tag to do to round out my birthday month. I was not tagged by anyone to do this tag. The original tag creator was a channel called Ink Not Blood, so I will link that original video in the description below. You should go and check that out. It's a lot of fun. So the idea behind this tag is to say that not everyone on BookTube or in the booktonet in general is super young. Quite a few of us are in fact over 30 and there are some of us who are in fact over 40. I am one such person, so I'm going to go through and do that tag now. Question number 1 is name one of your favourite books that features a protagonist who is over 30. So there's probably quite a few books that I could name for this one. Someone like Leanne Moriarty, someone like Marion Keyes, all do feature characters who are in their 30s in a lot of their books. But I've decided to go with someone who I basically never mention, although they are a favourite author of mine, and this particular book is my favourite book of theirs, and that is A Long Way Down by Nick Hornby. So there are two characters who are over 30 in this book, two main characters who are over 30 in this book. I can't actually recall their names, but it's been quite a while since I read this book. This book is about 4 separate individuals who all decide that they don't want to live any longer, and on New Year's Eve they head up to the top of a very well-known building in London that is known to be a place where people often jump to their deaths or attempt to kill themselves. And so all 4 of these characters on New Year's Eve go to do that, but because they all kind of wind up in the same spot together at the same time, they end up having a long conversation and they end up deciding that they don't wish to commit suicide, mostly because it would be weird now that they've chatted to each other. And then after that, it is about their lives going forward, and we learn more about what's happened to them, why they felt like that was the choice that they needed to make, and getting to the bottom of their lives and what's happened to them in their lives. I think this is a fantastic book. I think that it's very well written. I haven't actually done any research into the specifics of any of the issues that occur for any of the people and the reasons why any of the people do decide to take their own lives. So I would be very keen to read a bit more about those areas and learn a bit more about the representation and the writing in that regard. But personally, I think Nick Hornby is a fantastic writer. He writes with that irreverence that I really appreciate, where things that are quite heavy can be made amusing. Yeah, I think is very clever and very interesting. So that is the book that I have chosen for this question. Okay, so the next question is to name a book that represents who you were when you were younger. And for this one, I have actually chosen Ovid's Metamorphosis. So this is an epic poem written by the Roman poet Ovid. Ovid was very much similar to what I was just saying about Nick Hornby. He was very irreverent. He was very much a commentator, a social commentator of his time. And the Metamorphosis is definitely a book that is specifically written to kind of poke fun at Roman and Greek mythology and beliefs and some of the legends and stories that were going around back in the day. And I've decided to choose this book as a representation of who I was when I was younger, because when I was in high school, I was very interested in history, ancient history, and when I went to university, I studied the classics, ancient Greek and Roman literature and history and mythology and religion, and Ovid's Metamorphosis was a book that really spoke to me. I really, really enjoyed Ovid's writing, the way that he wrote, that kind of irreverent writing style that I obviously seem to enjoy a lot, as I talk about that a fair bit. And yeah, so I was studying Greek and Roman literature and really, really enjoying that. So I feel like that speaks to who I was when I was in my late teens, early 20s. I did at some point wished to continue at university and to become a academic. Didn't end up happening, and that's totally fine. But yeah, so that's who I was when I was a younger person. The next question is to name a book that represents who you are in your life now. And I have actually chosen 3 books to talk about here. The first one is The Hate You Give by Angie Thomas. The second one is Queenie by Candice Carty-Williams. And the third is Too Much Lip by Melissa Lukashenko. The reason that I have chosen those 3 books is because what I am doing at the moment is I am attempting to broaden my reading horizons. I am trying to read not just more broadly in terms of genre and type of book, although that has been something that I have been doing over the last 10 years or so, specifically in regards to representation of minorities, representations of people of colour, and people who are in the LGBTQA+ community. So I'm trying to broaden my horizons, branch out, learn more about the society in which I live, and definitely to diversify my reading. So those 3 books are 3 books that I have specifically chosen to mention here because everyone knows The Hate You Give is a book about a young black woman in America who witnesses a friend of hers being murdered by the police, and given the Black Lives Matter movement that has been a big part of America for a long time now, but was really thrust into the national spotlight and the international spotlight last year with the deaths of George Floyd and Breonna Taylor and many others at the hands of police. It's definitely a book that is very relevant and very important for us to read, and yeah, so that's why I said that one. Queenie is a book that is, I think, also really important for us to read because it is looking at how being black can change the way that can have an effect on your life. That isn't something that those of us who have white skin experience, and I thought that it was incredibly well written and offered a very different perspective on society. And it's interesting because it is in the United Kingdom rather than the United States. And then the last book is another contemporary written by an Australian Aboriginal author, and so I think this one also offers from an Aboriginal point of view, and so that's something a bit different again, and again it's in Australia rather than either of those other places, so they represent what I'm trying to do as a reader and as a human being at the moment in my life. The next question is to name a book that represents something that has never changed about you, and so I have selected a few books that I would like to mention because they are high fantasy books. So I have always been a high fantasy reader. I've mentioned on a number of occasions on this channel that I was raised reading Lion, the Witch and the Wardrobe and the Chronicles of Narnia, reading Lord of the Rings. My parents are huge fantasy readers, and so I have always been a huge fantasy reader, particularly high fantasy, and so that is something that's never changed. I still love high fantasy. As you probably know, if you've been around for a little bit of time, I am currently reading the Stormlight Archive by Brandon Sanderson. Last year, one of my favourite books of the year was The Priory of the Orange Tree by Samantha Shannon, so those books represent something about me that has never changed. And the next question is to name one of my favourite classics. I actually am going to sort of cheat a little bit because I'm going to name 2, but one of those isn't even a book. I'm going to name the author Jane Austen. She's one of my favourite authors, and all of her books are books that I absolutely love. My 2 favourite Austens are Pride and Prejudice and Sense and Sensibility, but in general I just really love Jane Austen as an author. And then I also want to mention Anne of Green Gables by L.M. Montgomery. I absolutely love Anne of Green Gables. It's been one of my favourite books for a long time now. I first read it when I was about 10 and I've absolutely loved it ever since. And yeah, I read it recently. I read it beginning of last year, and absolutely loved it again. So definitely those books would be my favourite classics. And then the final question is to name a book that you like or a book that you would like to read that was published the year you were born. So I had a little bit of a look at some of the books that were published in the year that I was born, and one of my favourite books from one of my favourite series of all time was published in the year I was born, which is 1980, and that is The Restaurant at the End of the Universe by Douglas Adams. So this is the second book in the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy series. This is a sci-fi comedic work that is just fantastic. It is definitely one of my favourite series of all time, and I definitely highly recommend if you like Terry Pratchett or Neil Gaiman, anyone of that type of writing, you will love it. And yeah, definitely one of my favourite series of all time, and the second book was published the year I was born, so that works out really, really well. So guys, that is the end of this video for today. I am not going to tag anyone in this tag because I don't actually know who is or is not over 30. So if you are over 30 and you have not yet done this tag and you would like to, then consider yourself tagged by myself. Otherwise, let me know in the comments below what you thought of my answers, what you thought of my video, and just in general, if you have anything you'd like to say, please do comment below. I would love to have a chat with you. If you'd like to leave a comment and let me know you were here, then please feel free to leave me, let's say, a calendar or calculator emoji to denote the passage of time. Anyway guys, really hope you enjoyed this video, and I will see you next time.